Welcome to the Senior High Crash Cymbal Etude. As we've heard in Michael's performance, there are a variety of note lengths, techniques, and of course dynamics all the way through. So before we jump into the 7/8 versus 9/8 versus all of the things that make this etude come to life, let's talk about some really important steps to arrive at that performance. The first thing that I'd like to talk about is making sure that you're really relaxed when you even pick up the cymbals. It's important to remember in percussion instruments, crash cymbals and beyond, that we should always bring the instrument to us. We should never think about bending our body to play the instrument. Crash cymbals are one of those instruments that if you think that you need to put your fingers a certain way and hold a certain angle and you're uncomfortable, chances are you're not going to always have the best opportunity for a great sound. So we're going to start with this. So Michael and I are going to stand relaxedly, and now we're going to take our non-dominant hand, which is our left hand, and we're going to simply bring it up here. Now at this point, it's comfortable, it's low to our body, and it's very stationary. Our right hand is our dominant hand, so when we pull that up, we're going to pretend that this is our right hand cymbal, and we can line up the edges at the perfect spot, or we can pull them back slightly. And at this point, we have a variety of motions that we can use. We can use a great big molar motion like this. We can use a smaller wrist motion and everything in between. But you'll notice when Michael picks up the cymbals in a moment that everything is rooted in bringing the instrument to him. He's very comfortable in his own posture and how he holds the cymbal. Next, we're going to talk about how to engage your fingers with the cymbal. So Michael's going to pick up the left hand cymbal, and you'll see that he hasn't changed his posture. He's still very relaxed, and I'm going to do the same. I'm going to pick up the crash cymbal. I think about it by holding the strap kind of like a drumstick, and if it works out so that I can keep my thumb as a T here and hold it, great. If it means that I take my thumb and I just relax it to the side, which matches Michael, that's even more comfortable for me as well. So I do a very similar technique as Michael does, and I hold it at somewhat of a natural angle. From this angle, my right cymbal will be able to line up the edge precisely where I'd like it, and I can see it. All right, so I'm going to put this cymbal in Michael's right hand. So now he has the opportunity to line up the edges of the cymbal precisely where he'd like. So if he lines them up too close together, he's setting himself up to either get an air pocket or an inconsistent crash at the very, very best. So he's going to pull the edges back ever so slightly based on how large your cymbals are. These are a really good medium, small pair. If you have larger cymbals, you might want to consider just a little bit more separation. Smaller cymbals, you line them up a little closer to the edge. So Michael's ear is going to tell him what's appropriate. Now I'm going to stand off to the side, and I want you to just listen to the quality of sound he gets. He's going to play some really nice slow quarter notes, and he's going to take a few bars to just crescendo, up and down. Fantastic. What you heard through that entire range of dynamics was a consistency of a flam. Now, there are two general schools of thought when you get a flam on the cymbals. You can either do a flam from the back of the cymbal forward, like so, heel toe, or you can do toe heel, like so. What Michael is doing is he's demonstrating how consistent that can be through soft dynamics all the way up to forte and back down. That is a great characteristic crash cymbal sound. Now as we dive into the etude, right off the bat, we have a mixed articulation of staccato sounds, let vibrate sounds in 7/8, then we go into 9/8, a really strong muted forte, builds it back up in the 9/8, and then a crash there for a dotted half note. So, Michael, could you just demonstrate just the first two bars, please, sir? So I want you to watch how he muffles, and then we'll talk about that next. Fantastic. So you'll notice that as we talked about earlier, everything is set up for his posture and his comfort so he can create great sounds. So when he's ready to muffle, he chooses the most efficient path back to his body. Instead of pulling them up to his shoulders or anything out of the way, look how closely he's playing, and then he's able to very quickly pull right into his abdomen. That is a direct path, and it's much more comfortable to muffle here than it is up here in the thinner skin up between your shoulder blades. So the last thing I want to point out that he did a great job of is he went short, short, long, and he did not overplay the tenuto. So he played mezzo piano, strong mezzo forte, but not out of context, and he went back to soft, louder, and then loudest, the forte. When he let it ring, he kept the quality of flam, but it still was forte. Could you demonstrate one more time before we go on, please? That is very clear. So dynamically it's clear, technically it's clear. Now we go to the 9/8. These are all to be let ringing, and then of course the very, very last stinger there on beat 8 there is muffled. So in fact, Michael, why don't you just take the 9/8 to the end, sir? And once again, you could hear that he brought us up to the forte, came back to only mezzo forte, then the quarter note rest, the dotted quarter rest, set us up for a big expectation, and he delivered with the forte. So watch one last time. He's going to play the entire etude with all the things we talked about. Pay attention to how relaxed his posture is, how ergonomic his hands are, and how he interacts with the straps of the cymbals. And then listen to the overall shape and melody he's creating with the dynamics and the subtlety of the flam. Fantastic. As you are preparing this etude, really pay attention to how his body interacts with the cymbals and think about the sounds you want to create. Rhythmic clarity, rhythmic integrity, and making sure that the subdivisions are exactly what you'd like it to be away from the cymbals. Then bring the cymbals into your vision of how the etude is supposed to go. Great job, Michael.